Welcome to Unity Networking. Today we're going to set up a very simple multiplayer project. Now, one benefit of Unity is it gives you a lot of help with networking and hides a lot of the nasty details. Normally you'd have to serialize all of the objects and all of the changes you want to make into a byte stream, send it across the network, and then have it deserialized on the other computer. This would have to be done for all the information you wanted to keep synced. So every time you wanted to send a command to the server, every time the server wanted to update something, every time the server wanted to run some code on the client side, all of this would have to be done with this serialization, deserialization. Customarily, this was done with a switch statement. When you switched off what type of packet it was, then you would determine what object it was referencing. Then you would parse out the information that you wanted to make the change for, and you have to update the object, and you have to do this for everything you send across the network. It's not impossible. It's not as difficult as it sounds, but it is a little bit tedious. Luckily for us, Unity has made this a little bit easier for us. So we're going to talk about how to set up a simple networking project. We're not actually going to have a game. We're just going to deal with the connection right now, and we're going to get into actually creating objects and movement in the next video. So like I said, it's not impossible to do the old-fashioned way, but it is difficult. Unity takes a much more OOC approach to networking. That means you can specify what objects you want to have networked and what information within those objects you want to transfer. This actually removes a lot of low-level problems for you and keeps some of the really gory details of networking away from you. However, it does still complicate things. So do not think that this is an easy ride out and you're not going to have any issues. Adding networking is going to increase the difficulty by an entire dimension. Starting out, we're going to make an empty game object. I made mine a cube. So here, but you could just make it an empty game object. It doesn't have to be a cube. So create empty if you wanted to, and what we're going to do is, this will be the basic scene. I'll have some extra stuff that you won't here. And what we're going to do is go over here, and we're going to add a network manager. So if I go to add component, network, you'll see I have a whole bunch of different network components, which we'll be looking at some of these, not all of them. But we'll be looking at, for example, the network manager will be the first one we look at, and then we're going to move to the network lobby manager. I'll talk about what's different. But the network lobby manager is basically an extension of the network manager. So the network manager, we're going to add this to our object. We're also going to add the network manager HUD. We won't be using this for long, but for now we'll use this. So once I have this, I have a couple options I can look at, and I can identify what exactly I need to make this happen. One thing, you need an offline scene, an online scene, and then you should, if you expand this arrow down here for spawn info, you should see a player prefab, and here you're going to make a prefab that has a network behavior. Actually, all you need here is a prefab that has a network ID. But normally you're going to have a network behavior. So we're going to talk about this briefly today. And for now, we can do player spawn methods random. That should be fine. Also down here, we shall see the network manager HUD. This is just a really quick HUD that they made. Just a simple way to get this up and testing it. Now, so when you have this, the first thing we want to do is figure out the scenes. So what this is going to do is going to allow you to specify where you want to connect or create a server, and then it's just going to start the game. There's no lobby, there's no waiting for other players, it just starts the game, and people can join and leave whenever they want. So what we want to do is we want to save this scene, and this scene is going to be the offline scene. So this is a little bit counterintuitive, but the scene with the network manager is going to be the offline scene, so make sure you save that. The scene online, or the online scene, and you can ignore this extra stuff I have here for the moment. I can just get rid of this. We'll come back to this. It's just basically going to have, I don't even need an event system. I just create a canvas that said online, so I knew I switched scenes. So there's nothing special going on here. You don't even have to create the canvas if you don't want to. Let's try to zoom in. But it just says online scene. And that's why I have the event system, and I have a main camera and a directional light. So I'm not doing anything else. It's just an empty scene. This is going to be what the scene is loaded up once I connect or create a game. So save this scene, call it scene online. Again, pause the video because I'm going to be going too fast probably for you to do this while I do the video. Now that I have these two scenes, we want to go back to saved in my asset folder. We want to go back to the offline scene. And we're going to click on Network Manager. And then we're going to try to drag these scenes onto the corresponding offline online scene. However, you'll probably notice it's not going to work for you. And what we have to do is we have to, before we can add them here, so before we can add it here, we have to go up to File, Build Settings, and we have to add them here, preferably in order. In fact, it has to be in order. So add the offline scene first, then add the scene online, or the online scene, and make sure they're both checked and in the build settings. You don't actually have to build it right now, so you don't have to build it, but we do want to make sure that they're here. Once I finish that, now I should be able to drag these onto the offline scene and the online scene. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on having making a network prefab for our player, a network player prefab. So I have a couple different ones here right now. The simplest one, find the correct, no, not that one. It's my network player. And what I've done is I've basically, I just made a sphere, nothing special. And you notice here I have network identity and I have a script here. We actually only need the network identity. However, this will automatically be added when we add our own network script. So we're going to make a sphere, and then what we're going to do is under our asset folders, we can have a network player, a script folder, and we can create what I called my simple network player. And simple is an understatement. So here, what we are going to do is basically use another reference using Unity Engine.networking. You'll do this for all of your networking applications pretty much. And then instead of inheriting mono behavior, you're going to inherit network behavior. And network behavior actually inherits from mono behavior. So all of those things that you used in mono behavior, you can still use in network behavior. But network behavior is going to be explicitly for a network or online game. Word of warning, this code will not work unless you are in a connected state with a game. And that's all we're going to do right now. So there's no control, there's no commands, there's no sync vars, there's nothing. It's just we're going to have this. All we're going to do is just change this from mono behavior to network behavior. And again, of course, we have to add this, this line here. So save that. Again, pause it if you need to. And then go back to our prefab. And when we add our simple network behavior on it, we'll automatically get this network identity. Now, in this particular class, we will never, ever, ever click this checkbox. If we click this checkbox, that means the client has full control over this object, which means if your executable gets cracked, if someone inserts a bad packet, or if a bit just gets flipped, then your positioning on your object will just randomly jump somewhere else, or it could get an invalid state in the game. Now, this is probably not a big deal if you just make a game and you intend the multiplayer to be simply LAN. So the multiplayer is a secondary consideration, and it's like a little bonus game, and you expect people just to play it over the LAN with their friends. You could probably get away with using local player authority. But if you're planning on making this a WAN game or deploying it across, say, or having it so people can play across the internet with each other, you do not want to select this checkbox. You will be introducing a security risk, and your game will eventually, if it's popular enough, be hacked. So we will not ever click this checkbox in this class. Don't do it. A lot of tutorials out there will do this, and it's an easy way to get player control up, and it's it's actually quite easy to get your single player game into a multiplayer game. However, it does add a very significant risk to your project. And I might be overstating that, but it's not a good practice. So once we have this, we added our behavior, we have our network identity, we can hit apply. We can then make the prefab, which I've done. So just drag your game object down here, down to the prefab folder. And then on the network manager, what we're going to do is we're going to take our prefab. If I can find the correct prefab. Yeah. And we're going to set this prefab to be the player prefab. Now what happens, instead of auto create players, whenever time a player joins, this object will be created, and every time a player leaves, this object will be destroyed. So once we have that, we're almost done. One thing, just a quick formality, go to edit, go to project settings, player, and under the PC, Mac, Linux standards, make sure run in background is selected. You want to make sure that, I'm not sure if this is absolutely necessary anymore, that the run in background is a property of the network manager, but you should still have this selected. Once you have that done, go to File, Build Settings, Build and Run. We'll call this Test. Yes. And what I would definitely recommend doing windowed and having a fairly small resolution. So we play this, and then we can play it here. Bring up our other one. There we go. And now we see, again, you may not have a cube if you use a empty game object. I made a cube. Here I can say LAN host, so I'm going to become the server and a client. The host means I am a server and a client. If I do server only, then I don't have a player associated to this. And then over here I can do LAN connect. And now it says we're both on online scenes. And if I expand this scene online, I will see I have 2 network player clones. I can't actually do anything else, but now I have successfully connected a client and a server together. And if I had commands, I could start using this as a game or a base point for my multiplayer application. With that, I'm going to conclude this video. And next time we're going to get into a little bit more on network behaviors and how to move. I'm actually purposely going to walk through how to do it the wrong way so you see what possible errors can occur, and then we'll move forward from there.